My hand, holding a chilled glass of Sauvignon Blanc, began to shake. It wasn't the gentle tremor of a cool breeze coming off the lake. It was a deep, seismic shudder that started in my core. The sound was faint, carried on that same breeze, from the patio up to the second-floor balcony where I was standing. Karen's voice, sharp, dismissive, and utterly certain. Honestly, what is she even doing up there? She doesn't belong here. She never has. The words sliced through the cheerful chatter of the family gathering below. Muffled laughter followed, the kind that signals agreement. I looked down at them. My husband, Mark, his sister Karen, their cousins, all gathered at the lake house I had bought. My gaze drifted past them to the dock, where their father, Richard, was admiring the brand-new ski boat I'd surprised him with for his 70th birthday. I felt the air leave my lungs, a slow, painful hiss. It wasn't a shocking revelation. It was a confirmation. A final, brutal confirmation of a truth I had been swallowing down for 20 years. The glass slipped from my numb fingers, not shattering on the wooden deck, but landing with a dull thud on the outdoor rug, spilling white wine like a surrender. 25 years ago, I didn't have balconies or lake houses. I had a tiny fourth-floor walk-up apartment and a dream of building a real estate development company from scratch. Mark had a kind smile and a shared love for late-night diners and ambitious blueprints sketched on napkins. We were a team. I was the engine. He was the heart. His belief in me was the fuel I burned through long nights and risky ventures. When I closed my first major deal, a small commercial complex, we didn't buy a fancy car. We paid off his parents' mortgage. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. "We're a family," I said, and I believed it. His father, Richard, a gentleman who had worked his whole life at a factory, cried when I handed him the deed. His mother, God rest her soul, baked me my favorite lemon meringue pie. Karen, Mark's sister, was harder to win over. She saw my ambition not as drive, but as something unfeminine, aggressive. Still, I tried. I funded her son's college education. I co-signed the loan for her first salon. I thought generosity was a language everyone understood. When Richard had his heart attack 10 years ago, I didn't hesitate. I moved my office to be closer to home, hired the best cardiologist in the state, and personally managed his recovery schedule. I sat with him for hours, listening to stories about his youth, while Mark was busy with the day-to-day of the business we now ran together. It was during those quiet afternoons that Richard started calling me his daughter. The word was a balm to my soul, a validation that I had finally, truly, been accepted. I wasn't just Mark's wife. I was a cornerstone of the family, or so I thought. I built my life around that belief. Every financial decision, every holiday plan, every major purchase was made with them in mind. The sprawling Thanksgiving dinners, the all-expenses-paid trips to Hawaii, the down payment for Mark's nephew's first home. I wasn't just sharing my wealth. I was weaving my soul into the fabric of their lives, convinced that my thread was as integral as any other. I was the provider, the fixer, the quiet benefactor, and I asked for nothing in return but a seat at the table, a place to belong. The idea for the trip to Tuscany was mine. Richard had always dreamed of seeing it, and with his health stable, it felt like the perfect celebration. I booked a magnificent villa in the countryside, large enough for the entire family: Mark, Richard, Karen, her husband, and their 2 teenage children. From the moment we landed, I felt like the tour director, not a family member. At the rental car agency, Karen's husband, Tom, tossed the keys to their car at me. "You're the best with directions, Eleanor," he said with a wink. But the message was clear. You handle the logistics. The first few days were a tapestry of microaggressions. During a wine tasting, Karen regaled the group with a story from her and Mark's childhood. When I tried to add a related anecdote, she simply talked over me, her eyes fixed on her brother. Anyway, as I was saying, it was as if I hadn't spoken at all. At dinner, they would slip into a conversational shorthand of inside jokes and shared memories, a language I could never be fluent in. I would smile and nod, the food tasting like ash in my mouth. One afternoon, I came back to the villa after a walk to find them all huddled around the kitchen island, laughing. The moment I stepped in, the laughter died. An awkward silence fell. "Oh, Eleanor," Karen said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We were just planning a little side trip to a leather market tomorrow. We figured you'd probably want to stay back and work anyway. I wasn't working. My laptop hadn't even been opened. But the assumption was there. I was the provider, the outsider, not part of the fun. Mark just stood there, swirling the wine in his glass. The ultimate humiliation came during a cooking class I had arranged. It was meant to be the highlight of the trip. As the chef demonstrated how to make pasta, he asked for a volunteer. My niece, Lily, pointed at me. "Aunt Eleanor should do it. She's a great cook." Karen let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, honey, no. Eleanor doesn't cook. She orders." The group tittered. It was a small, cruel jab, but it perfectly summarized their view of me. I wasn't a person with skills or hobbies. I was a walking, talking bank account. I spent the rest of the class at the back of the room, my hands clenched, the scent of basil and garlic making me nauseous. I was a ghost at my own feast. The final day in Italy was supposed to be perfect. I had chartered a private boat to take us to Capri. It was expensive, a grand finale, but I wanted one last beautiful memory. We were to meet at the marina in Naples at 10 a.m. I was running 5 minutes late. The clasp on my necklace had broken, a silly, frustrating delay. As I hurried through the crowded piazza toward the docks, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. "Hey, honey," he said, his voice tinny and distant over the noise of a boat engine. "Listen, there was a bit of a mix-up with the captain. He had an earlier slot and we had to leave, or we would have lost the booking. We're already on our way." I stopped dead in my tracks. Tourists bustled around me, but my world had shrunk to the voice in my ear. "What do you mean, you left? Don't worry, we'll be back this evening. You can have a lovely day exploring Naples. See the museum. We'll bring you back some limoncello." His tone was breezy, casual, as if he were telling me he'd forgotten to pick up milk. "Mark," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. The boat was chartered for the entire day. There was no earlier slot. I have the confirmation right here. You could have waited 5 minutes. A pause. Then I heard Karen's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. "Mark, hang up and let's go. The sea is beautiful." His voice came back, flustered. "Look, it was a misunderstanding. The family was all here and we just went. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. I have to go." He hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, under the relentless Italian sun. He didn't just hang up on me. He hung up on 25 years of us. He chose them. He chose the easy path, the path of no confrontation, the path where I was the acceptable sacrifice. I wasn't just left at the dock. I was marooned. The weight of every subtle insult, every dismissive glance, every forced smile crashed down on me. They hadn't just forgotten me. They had discarded me. And my husband, my partner, the man whose family I had made my own, had let them. I was completely, utterly alone. I wandered away from the bustling marina, my feet moving without direction. I found myself in a quiet, narrow street, the kind with laundry strung between balconies and pots of geraniums on every windowsill. I sank onto a stone bench outside a small artisan shop that sold handmade leather journals. Tears I hadn't allowed myself to cry for years began to fall, hot and silent. I wasn't sobbing. I was leaking, the pressure of a lifetime of quiet compromises finally finding an escape. The shop door opened, and an elderly woman with kind, wrinkled eyes and a cloud of white hair emerged. She didn't speak English, and my Italian was rudimentary at best. She simply looked at me, her expression one of profound understanding. She went back inside and returned with a small glass of water and a single, perfect biscotto on a saucer. She set it down beside me and then sat on the other end of the bench, not speaking, just sharing the space. After a few minutes of shared silence, she patted my hand. She pointed to a beautiful deep blue journal in her shop window. Then she pointed at me, then at the open road before us. She said something in soft, melodic Italian. The only words I truly understood were, "La tua vita è tua," your life, it is yours. It was so simple, yet it struck me with the force of a revelation. My life. When was the last time I had thought of it as exclusively mine? It had become our life, their life, a portfolio of assets to be managed for the comfort of others. This woman, a complete stranger, saw me. Not my bank account, not my role as a wife or a benefactor. She saw a woman in pain and offered a moment of grace. I bought the blue journal. As I paid, she wrapped it in brown paper and tied it with a string, her hands moving with a gentle, practiced care. That small act of kindness felt more genuine than any lavish gift I had ever given or received. I walked away from her shop not healed, but with a seed of clarity planted in the wreckage. My life was mine, and it was time to take it back. The flight home was silent. I booked my own seat in a different class. Mark tried to talk to me at the gate, his face a mask of strained apology, but I simply looked through him. When I landed in New York, I didn't go home. I went to a hotel. The next morning I called David, my attorney and an old friend. "David," I said, my voice calm and even, "I need you to initiate a full asset restructuring." There was a pause on the other end. "Eleanor, is everything okay?" "Restructuring what exactly?" "Everything," I said. "Let's start with the revocable living trust I established for Mark's family 10 years ago. The one that disperses quarterly stipends to Karen and funds the educational accounts for her kids. It's revocable, correct?" "Of course," David said, his voice shifting from friendly to professional. "You are the sole grantor. You can dissolve it at any time." "Good. Dissolve it. Effective immediately," I instructed. "Next, the Lake House. The title is under the Eleanor Vance Family LLC, of which I am the sole managing member. I want to list it for sale by the end of the week. Please have an agent send the family a formal notice to vacate within 30 days. "Okay," David said slowly. "And the yacht? The one for Richard?" I smiled, a cold, humorless expression. "Another asset of the LLC, gifted for his use, not his ownership. Arrange for it to be retrieved from the lake and transported to a marina in Florida. I'm thinking of learning how to sail." David was quiet for a moment. "Eleanor, this is comprehensive." "There's more," I said, looking out the hotel window at the city I had conquered. "The supplementary credit cards on my primary account, one for Mark, one for Karen. Cancel them. And finally, I need you to draw up divorce papers. The grounds are irreconcilable differences. Our prenup is ironclad, as you know. The business is mine. The assets accumulated from it are mine. He is a salaried employee. His position as COO is for now secure, provided he does his job, but his access to my life is terminated." It wasn't an emotional outburst. It was a business decision. For 20 years, I had treated my marriage and my in-laws as a passion project, pouring in resources with no expectation of ROI except for love and belonging. It had proven to be a bad investment. It was time to cut my losses and reinvest in a new venture. Myself. Initiate the proceedings, David. All of them. The fallout was, as David later described it, biblical. The first indication I had was a series of frantic voicemails from Mark. The first was confused. "Eleanor, my card was declined at lunch. Can you call the bank?" The second was panicked. "Karen just called me screaming. What did you do? Her son's tuition payment was rejected." The third was pleading. "Please, just talk to me. We can fix this. It was a mistake. A stupid, stupid mistake." I listened to them once, then deleted them. Karen, according to a mutual acquaintance, had a full-blown meltdown. She had apparently been forced to sell her luxury SUV to cover the unexpected college bill. She'd sent me a dozen rambling, furious emails, alternating between calling me a vindictive monster and begging for forgiveness. I created a filter to send them directly to a folder I never opened. The most satisfying report came from the real estate agent handling the lake house. She told me Richard had called her, utterly bewildered. He couldn't understand why strangers were touring his home, why his boat was gone. "But Eleanor gave this to me," he kept saying. The agent gently explained that the property and the vessel were owned by a corporation that had simply decided to liquidate the assets. He didn't understand the legal nuance, but he understood the result. His comfort, his status, his playground, all of which he'd accepted without question, had vanished overnight. Mark was forced to move out of our home and into a small corporate apartment. He saw me at board meetings where I was professional, detached, and ruthlessly efficient. He tried to catch my eye, to find a flicker of the woman he knew. He found nothing. He was looking at his boss, not his wife. The family, which had orbited the sun of my wealth, suddenly found itself in a cold, dark universe. Their lifestyle, built on my sacrifice, crumbled without its foundation. I felt no joy in their pain, but I felt a profound sense of justice. They hadn't wanted me, only what I could provide. Now they had neither. My new apartment wasn't as large as the house I'd shared with Mark, but it was infinitely more mine. It was filled with light, art I loved, and books I finally had time to read. The walls were painted a warm, inviting cream, not the sterile gray a designer had chosen for the marital home. I enrolled in an advanced Italian course, the one I'd always meant to take. My accent was clumsy, but the laughter in the classroom was genuine. I picked up the camera I'd bought years ago and started taking photography classes. I discovered a passion for capturing the candid, unposed moments of life in the city. A street musician lost in his song, an old couple sharing a bench in Central Park, the way the light hit the Chrysler Building at dawn. I reconnected with two of my best friends from college, women who had known me when I was just Eleanor, the girl with messy hair and big ideas. We had long, wine-fueled dinners where we talked about everything and nothing, our laughter echoing in my new, peaceful space. I started traveling again, but this time for myself. I went back to Italy, not to a crowded villa, but to a small, quiet hotel in Florence. I spent my days walking, getting lost in the Uffizi Gallery and sitting in cafes, writing in the blue leather journal I'd bought in Naples. I wrote about my past, my pain, and my slow, steady rediscovery of joy. I was no longer a benefactor, a manager, or a wife. I was a student, a photographer, a friend, a traveler. I was a woman living her life, la tua vita, on her own terms. The yacht sat in a marina in Fort Lauderdale, and I did learn to sail. Skimming across the water with the wind in my hair, the sun on my face, I felt a freedom so profound it was almost dizzying. This was a feeling no amount of money could buy, only courage. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up with a text message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was more spam or another veiled attempt at contact from Mark's family. But something made me open it. "Aunt Eleanor? This is Lily, Karen's daughter. I got your number from an old holiday card. I hope it's okay that I'm texting you." My finger hovered over the delete button. Lily, the girl who had tried to volunteer me for the cooking class, the one ray of innocence in that Tuscan nightmare. I hesitated, then read on. "I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us, and I understand why. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, not just in Italy but for years. I'm in my second year of college now, the college you made possible, and I'm learning to see things differently. Mom is, well, she's not handling things well. She's angry and bitter and blames you for everything. But I don't. I was there. I saw it. I saw the way they treated you. I saw how they'd talk about you when you left the room. They called you the bank behind your back. They took everything you gave and complained it wasn't enough. They loved your gifts, but resented the giver. I was a kid, and I didn't know how to say anything. But I knew it was wrong. In Italy, when they left you at the marina, I cried. I told Mom it was cruel, and she told me to be quiet, that you were a big girl and could take care of yourself. I guess I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry. You deserved so much better than us. You were the kindest, most generous person in our lives, and we treated you like an inconvenience. I hope one day you can be happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. I don't expect a reply. I just needed you to know that someone saw. Someone knows the truth. Lily." I read the message 3 times. The rain streaked down my window pane, blurring the city lights. A single tear, wholly different from the ones in Naples, traced a path down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of pain or loss. It was a tear of recognition. Someone saw. Someone knew. I sat with Lily's message for a full day, letting her words settle into the quiet spaces of my new life. Bitterness was a tempting, easy response. A simple thank you felt too small. Silence felt like a punishment she didn't deserve. She had shown immense courage, breaking ranks with a family that clearly valued loyalty above integrity. She deserved a response that honored that courage. The next afternoon, I picked up my phone and began to type, "Dear Lily, thank you for your message. It takes a great deal of courage and integrity to write something so honest, and I want you to know that I see that, and I appreciate it. You didn't have to reach out, but you did, and that speaks volumes about the woman you are becoming. You are right. For many years, I was treated not as a person, but as a resource, and for many years, I allowed it, hoping that my generosity would eventually be mistaken for love, or at least for belonging. I learned a very painful, very valuable lesson. You cannot purchase your place in someone's heart. You are either invited in, or you are not. I am not angry anymore. Anger is a heavy anchor, and I have finally learned to sail. What I feel now is a quiet sense of peace. My life is my own now, built on a foundation of self-respect, and it is a life I am truly beginning to love. Your parents and I are on different paths now, and that is a boundary that will not change. The damage done was too deep, but that is our story, not yours. Your path is your own to choose. You are not defined by their choices, only by your own. Your message to me proves that you are already walking a path of kindness and truth. Continue on that path. I wish you all the best in your studies and in your life. Be brave, be kind, and never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong in a place where you have earned your right to be. Perhaps one day, when you are a little further down your path, and I am a little further down mine, our roads will cross again. Warmly, Eleanor. As I hit send, a final weight lifted. I wasn't forgiving them. I was releasing myself. I looked out at the skyline, a tapestry of infinite lights and possibilities. I thought of Karen's words, floating across the lake. She doesn't belong here. She was right, in a way she could never understand. I didn't belong in their small transactional world. My place was here, in a life I had built, lost, and reclaimed. My place was at the helm of my own ship, sailing toward an horizon that was entirely, beautifully mine. If Eleanor's story of reclaiming her power and finding her own joy resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of strength and transformation. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had a moment that forced you to choose yourself? Share a piece of your story below. Your journey could be the inspiration someone else needs to see today.